Hey everyone, welcome to the show. Today we're diving into something pretty exciting, expanding into Colombia.
Yeah, Colombia, it's a hot topic in the business world right now, and for good reason.
Right. You've got this incredible talent pool, a rapidly growing market. It's attracting a lot of attention.
It really is. But breaking into any new market comes with challenges. Navigating the legalities, the logistics.
It can feel overwhelming for sure,
Yeah.
especially for businesses that are used to operating in their home countries.
Absolutely. It's like trying to assemble furniture with instructions in a language you don't understand.
I like that analogy.
Oh.
Perfect. So where do you even begin?
Well, that's where things like PEO and EOR services come in.
Okay, PEO, EOR. We hear those terms a lot, but can you break it down for us?
Mhm.
What are they exactly?
Sure. So PEO stands for Professional Employer Organization. It's essentially a co-employment model where a company like INS Global partners with you to handle all those essential HR tasks.
Got it. Like payroll benefits, all that stuff.
Exactly. And most importantly, making sure you're compliant with Colombian labor laws.
Yes, compliance. That's a big one.
Huge. And then you have EOR, which stands for Employer of Record.
And how is that different?
Well, with an EOR, they actually become the legal employer for your Colombian team.
Yeah.
So they take care of everything, contracts, payroll, even more complex things like terminations, if it ever comes to that.
Okay, so PEO is like sharing the HR workload,
Mhm.
and EOR is like having them be the full-fledged employer.
That's a good way to put it.
And INS Global offers both, right?
They do, which gives you a lot of flexibility depending on your needs and goals in Colombia.
Got it.
Yeah.
Let's focus on the PEO side for a second. What are the big advantages for a company considering this model in Colombia?
Well, first and foremost, it's the speed. I mean, with INS Global's PEO service, you can be operational in Colombia in as little as 2 days.
2 days. Seriously.
Seriously. Compared to the months it can take to set up a foreign entity on your own, it's a game changer.
Wow, that's incredible. But what's the catch? There must be some downsides, right?
There are always trade-offs, of course.
Yeah.
But in this case, the benefits really outweigh any perceived downsides.
Like what?
Well, besides the speed, you're saving a ton of money.
Wow.
No incorporation fees, no legal hurdles, and you're freeing up your own team to focus on what they do best.
So cost savings and efficiency, those are major wins.
They are. And INS Global doesn't take a one-size-fits-all approach.
Oh.
They really work closely with you to understand your specific goals and challenges.
So it's a personalized approach.
It is. They develop a tailored plan and work with you every step of the way. It's a partnership.
That makes sense. So we've got speed, cost savings, personalized approach. What else should companies be aware of?
Compliance. Regulatory compliance, Colombian labor laws are complex, and even a small misstep can lead to big fines. INS Global takes that worry off your plate.
Okay. Peace of mind is a big one.
Yeah.
Especially for companies new to Colombia.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Their legal experts are on top of all the latest regulations, ensuring you operate smoothly and compliantly.
So you're not constantly looking over your shoulder worrying about making a mistake.
Exactly. And the results speak for themselves. A whopping 98% of INS Global's PEO clients recommend their services.
Wow, 98%. That's impressive.
It is. And if you're thinking about the bottom line, companies using a PEO see an average ROI of 27%.
Okay, so we're talking significant financial benefits as well.
We are.
All right, let's compare this head-to-head PEO versus traditional company incorporation.
Yeah.
What are the key differences?
Well, we've touched on the speed and cost, but let's break it down further. If you go the traditional route of incorporating a company in Colombia, you're looking at a minimum of 6 months, often longer.
And with a PEO?
Days, a matter of days.
Okay, so round one goes to PEO. What about financially?
Again, the numbers don't lie. INS Global's PEO service is on average 80% less expensive than setting up your own entity.
Wow, 80%. So you're saving on setup fees, administrative, costs everything.
Pretty much.
Round two also goes to PEO. This is starting to feel like a landslide.
It is. And there's one more significant factor. Companies using a PEO see a 14% decrease in employee turnover.
Really? Why is that?
It's the support and expertise the PEO provides. They handle payroll benefits compliance flawlessly. This leads to happier, more stable employees who are less likely to leave.
That makes sense. So another point for PEO. Are there any scenarios where traditional company incorporation might actually be the better option?
There might be a few very specific situations. For example, if you have really long-term complex plans in Colombia and need absolute control over every single aspect of your operations. But for most companies looking to expand quickly and efficiently, PEO is the clear winner.
Okay, so let's say I'm sold on the PEO idea. What are the essential things I need to know about Colombian labor laws?
Great question. Let's start with the basics employment contracts.
All right, contracts.
Yeah.
What's the deal with those in Colombia?
Well, written contracts are considered best practice, especially for probation periods, and fixed term contracts, which in Colombia can exceed 3 years.
So even though it's not always required, it's best to get everything in writing.
Exactly. It avoids misunderstandings down the line.
Yeah.
What about working hours and overtime?
Yeah, what about those?
Colombian law limits the work week to 48 hours. Anything over that is considered overtime and needs to be paid accordingly.
Makes sense. What are the overtime rates?
Daytime overtime is paid at 25% extra, while nighttime overtime jumps to 75% extra.
Wow. Okay, so there's a big difference there.
There is. It definitely encourages companies to stay within the standard work week.
What about holidays and vacation time?
Colombia has 18 national holidays throughout the year. And when it comes to vacation time, employees earn 15 days of paid leave after working for a year.
Okay. And do they have to use all those days each year?
And they have to take at least 6 of those days annually.
Got it. What happens if an employee gets sick? How does sick leave work in Colombia?
Well, Colombia has a pretty comprehensive system for sick leave. After contributing to Social Security for at least 4 weeks, an employee is eligible for up to 180 days of paid sick leave.
180 days. That's 6 months.
It is. For the first 2 days, the employer covers the cost, and after that, Social Security takes over, paying 2/3 of their salary.
So the employer has some initial responsibility, and then the system steps in. What about parental leave? Maternity and paternity leave.
Colombia is pretty progressive in that area. Maternity leave is 18 weeks, fully paid by the state, and fathers get 2 weeks of paternity leave.
Okay, that's pretty generous.
It is. And there's even an option for mothers to share the last 6 weeks of their leave with their partners.
Oh, wow, that's interesting. So we've covered contracts, working hours, vacation time, sick leave, parental leave. What about taxes and Social Security contributions? What do employers really need to know?
Well, this is where having a partner like INS Global is really valuable. They handle all those complex calculations and compliance. But here's a quick overview. The corporate tax rate in Colombia is 35%, and personal income tax can reach up to 39%.
Okay, those are some significant numbers.
Yeah.
Anything else about taxes that stands out?
Yes. Both employers and employees contribute to Social Security, which covers healthcare pensions and work injury insurance. And don't forget about VAT. The standard rate in Colombia is 19%.
Right, so there's a lot to keep track of, especially when it comes to taxes and Social Security. I can see why having INS Global handle that would be a huge relief.
Absolutely. They take all the stress out of it.
Can you walk us through their specific PEO process? How does it all work?
It all starts with a conversation. INS Global will sit down with you virtually or in person to really understand your goals, what you want to achieve in Colombia.
So they get to know your business and your vision.
Exactly. From there, they develop a customized action plan outlining exactly how they can support you.
It's not a one-size-fits-all approach.
Not at all. They tailor their services to your specific needs. They believe in building partnerships, not just transactions.
I like that. So once you're on board, what happens next?
Well, they provide the legal structure needed to employ your team in Colombia, acting as the co-employer and handling all those HR tasks.
So things like drafting contracts, running payroll, administering benefits, making sure everything aligns with Colombian labor laws.
Exactly. They handle it all, making sure the onboarding process is smooth and your Colombian team has everything they need to operate seamlessly.
It sounds like they take a lot of the headaches out of global expansion.
They do. They make it as painless as possible.
What would you say are the most compelling reasons to choose INS Global as a partner?
Well, we've talked about their speed, their expertise, their personalized approach, but they also have a truly global reach with offices all over the world.
So they have that local expertise no matter where you're expanding to.
Precisely. And they offer a whole range of services beyond PEO and EOR. They can assist with recruitment, managing independent contractors, even full company incorporation if that's what you need down the line.
So they're a real one-stop shop for global expansion.
You could say that they're experts in helping businesses navigate the complexities of the international market.
All right, listeners, take note. If you're thinking about expanding into Colombia, INS Global sounds like a great partner to have on your side. Before we move on, any final thoughts?
Yes, the key takeaway is you don't have to go it alone when expanding globally. A PEO like INS Global can be an invaluable partner offering the expertise, support, and peace of mind you need to succeed.
I couldn't agree more. And on that note, I think it's time to give our listeners something to think about. We've talked a lot about the advantages of PEO, but here's a question. Could a PEO be a better fit for your expansion goals than traditional company incorporation?
It's a great question to consider. Think about your specific needs, your timeline, your budget. Maybe it's time to ditch the old way of doing things and explore a more efficient, cost-effective path.
Exactly. If you're ready to explore those options, we highly recommend contacting INS Global today. Tell them about your expansion project, and I'm sure they'll help make your Colombian venture a success story.
Don't wait, reach out today. You know, it's amazing how much the global business landscape is changing.
It really is. The world feels smaller than ever, right?
Yep.
And the opportunities seem endless.
Exactly. But with all that opportunity comes more complexity. You really need to be agile and have the right knowledge to navigate international markets these days.
Totally agree. And speaking of agility and know-how, we were just talking about INS Global and their wide range of services.
Right, INS Global. They're like a Swiss Army knife for global expansion. They've got all the tools you need to handle whatever comes up.
I love that analogy. It's perfect.
Mm-hmm.
So before we moved on, we were unpacking their 4-step PEO process. Can we jump back into that for a minute?
Of course. And remember, it all starts with a personalized consultation. They really want to understand your specific needs before doing anything.
So it's not like they just throw a generic solution at you. They actually customize it.
Not at all. They spend time getting to know you, your goals, the challenges you face, and they really want to build a partnership with you, not just do a transaction.
That's good to hear. So step 1 is communication and collaboration. What's next?
Step 2 is where INS Global kind of takes over. They create the legal framework to employ your team in Colombia. They act as the co-employer, like we talked about.
So they're handling all the legal stuff, making sure everything's above board.
Exactly. They manage contracts, payroll benefits, all the admin tasks that can be a real pain, especially when you're in a new market.
Oh, yeah. That sounds like a lifesaver, especially for a company that's brand new to operating in Colombia.
Yeah, it really is. Then we move on to step 3, which is all about onboarding your Colombian team.
Okay, so hiring. I bet finding the right people in a new country can be a challenge.
It definitely can, but INS Global is great at it. They have a ton of local knowledge and really understand how to find the best talent in Colombia.
So it's not just about getting a stack of resumes. They're actually helping you find people who fit your company and your needs.
Exactly. They handle the screening, the interviews, the whole onboarding process, so it's smooth for you and your new employees.
Awesome. So then what about step 4? What happens then?
Step 4 is all about making sure things run smoothly. INS Global is your partner in Colombia. They take care of day-to-day HR tasks, compliance issues, any problems that come up.
So it's not like a one-time thing. They're there for the long haul.
They are. They really care about your success in Colombia. And don't forget, they're also the experts on those tricky Colombian labor laws.
Oh, right. We talked about that earlier. Maybe we should go over some of the key points again, just to make sure everyone remembers.
Sure. So let's start with the most basic thing, employment contracts.
Okay, contracts. What are the essentials?
The big thing to remember is that while written contracts aren't always a legal requirement, they're the best practice, especially when you're dealing with probation periods and fixed-term contracts.
Which can only be for 3 years max in Colombia, right?
Exactly. It's always better to be safe than sorry. Get everything in writing to prevent problems later on. What about working hours and overtime?
Yeah, what about those? How does that work in Colombia?
The standard work week in Colombia is 48 hours. Anything over that is overtime, and you have to pay extra for it.
Okay, that makes sense. What are the overtime rates?
If the overtime is during the day, it's an extra 25% on top of the normal pay. But if it happens at night, it jumps up to 75%.
Wow. Okay, so they really don't want people working too much overtime.
And there are other good things for employees, too. Colombian law gives everyone 18 paid national holidays every year.
That's pretty generous. What about regular vacation time?
Once an employee has been working for a year, they get 15 days of paid vacation.
And do they have to use all of it?
They have to take at least 6 days off every year.
Okay, good to know. What happens if someone gets sick?
Sick leave in Colombia is actually really good. After an employee has paid into Social Security for at least 4 weeks, they can get up to 180 days of paid sick leave.
Wow, 180 days. That's half a year.
It is. For the first 2 days, their employer pays, and after that, it switches over to Social Security. They cover 2/3 of the employee's salary.
That sounds fair. It splits the responsibility. So what about parental leave?
Maternity and paternity leave in Colombia are really progressive.
Actually,
Fill us in on the details.
maternity leave is 18 weeks, and it's 100% paid for by the government.
Wow, 18 weeks. That's a lot longer than a lot of other countries.
It is. And fathers get 2 weeks of paternity leave.
Okay, that's good. What about if they want to split the time?
They can. Mothers can actually share the last 6 weeks of their maternity leave with their partners.
Oh, wow. That's really cool. It gives families so much more flexibility.
Exactly. So we've covered contracts, working hours, vacation time, sick leave, family leave. Now, what about the big one, taxes?
Yeah, taxes.
Yeah.
What do employers need to know about that in Colombia?
Well, as of 2022, the corporate tax rate in Colombia is 35%. And for personal income tax, it can go as high as 39%, depending on how much someone makes.
Yikes. Those are big numbers. Anything else about taxes that's important?
Yes, both employers and employees have to pay into Social Security. That covers healthcare pensions and work injury insurance.
Mm.
Oh, and don't forget about VAT. The standard rate in Colombia is 19%.
All right. So there's a lot to remember about taxes and Social Security. It really shows how helpful it would be to have a partner like INS Global who can deal with all that for you.
100%. They take care of it all.
Yeah.
No stress for you. Now, I know we've been talking a lot about PEO, but let's switch gears for a second and talk about EOR, Employer of Record.
Okay, EOR. So that's another option for companies who want to get into the Colombian market, right? Maybe they want to test things out before committing to setting up their own legal entity. That's exactly it. It's a great way to try things out before diving all in. With EOR, INS Global actually becomes the legal employer of your Colombian team. So they handle everything, contracts, payroll taxes, even terminations.
So you're basically outsourcing all your HR in Colombia to a trusted partner.
Exactly. It gives you more flexibility and agility, especially if you're not sure about staying in Colombia long term.
I can see the appeal for sure. But are there any disadvantages to using EOR? Any downsides?
Well, since INS Global is technically the employer, you might not have as much direct control over some HR things, but they're really transparent and communicate well, so you always know what's going on and are involved in the big decisions.
So it's about finding the right balance between control and convenience.
That's it. It depends on your needs and your risk tolerance. But for many companies, the advantages of EOR are bigger than any perceived loss of control.
I see what you mean. So we've focused on PEO and EOR. But I know INS Global offers even more services for businesses that are expanding globally.
You're right. They're like a one-stop shop. They can help you recruit top talent no matter where you're expanding to.
That's huge these days.
Yeah.
It's so competitive out there.
It really is. And they also know how to manage independent contractors, which is becoming more and more common.
What about if a company eventually decides to officially set up shop in Colombia? Can INS Global help with that too?
Yep. They offer full company incorporation services. They'll walk you through the whole process and make sure you're set up for success.
So they really do have the whole package. It's like a global expansion toolkit.
It is. They're all about helping businesses deal with the challenges of doing business internationally.
We've covered so much today.
Mhm.
PEO, EOR, Colombian labor laws, INS Global's other services. I think we've got a really good understanding of what it takes to extend into Colombia now.
Me too. It's been a really interesting deep dive into global expansion and how a partner like INS Global can help.
I think it's clear that they're a leader in this space.
They are. Their expertise, their global presence, their dedication to personalized service, it's impressive.
Okay, before we wrap up this part, I want to leave everyone with something to think about. We've talked about all the good things about working with INS Global, but what about the flip side? What are the risks of not getting expert help when you're expanding internationally?
That's a great point. I think the risks are really high. You could end up having problems with compliance, legal issues, expensive mistakes. You could even hurt your brand's reputation.
It's true. Sometimes it's actually cheaper to invest in expert advice than to try to do it all yourself and mess things up.
I agree. It's about being proactive and managing risks, setting yourself up for success from the beginning.
So to all our listeners out there, if you're serious about expanding into Colombia, don't try to do it alone. Talk to INS Global. Use their expertise. Let them guide you. They have the knowledge and the experience to help you succeed in the Colombian market.
Couldn't agree more. INS Global is your partner in global expansion.
Make sure to join us for the last part of this deep dive, where we'll go even deeper into why you should choose INS Global and look at some of the reasons why companies all over the world trust them. You know, at the beginning of this deep dive, we talked about global expansion being like trying to solve a Rubik's Cube blindfolded.
Yeah, I remember that. Analogy is pretty spot on.
Right. So many moving parts, so much to consider.
Yeah.
It can be really overwhelming.
Absolutely.
But after spending this time exploring what INS Global can do, their PEO and EOR services, how well they know Colombian labor laws, it feels like someone just handed us the solution guide.
I know what you mean. Like they took all that complexity and made it simple.
Exactly. They're not just saying, good luck, figure it out. They actually give you the tools and the knowledge to succeed.
And that's the big difference. That's what makes them stand out. It's a real partnership. They actually want you to succeed in Colombia.
Couldn't agree more. I think we've done a good job explaining what INS Global does and how they do it, the what and the how. But before we finish up, I want to talk about the why.
The why. Interesting.
Yeah. Why should a company choose INS Global? What are the big reasons?
Okay, I see what you mean. So let's pretend we're a company thinking about expanding into Colombia. What would make us choose INS Global?
Exactly.
Well, for me, the first reason is speed. And business time is money, right? INS Global can get you up and running in Colombia so fast, in days, not months.
That's huge. Makes a big difference.
It does. You can jump on opportunities right away. Stay ahead of the competition.
Absolutely. What else?
Okay, so speed. And then there's risk. When you expand internationally, there are always risks. But INS Global knows Colombian labor laws. They know all the rules. They know HR best practices.
Yeah.
They take so much risk off the table.
Like a safety net.
Exactly. They help you avoid those mistakes, those legal problems that can cost you a lot of time and money.
Peace of mind is definitely valuable, especially in a new market.
For sure. So we've got speed and risk. What else?
Anything else come to mind?
How about focus? When you use INS Global, they handle all that complicated HR stuff, all the legal details. It frees up your team to actually focus on growing the business, on doing what they do best.
Makes sense. You can put your energy where it matters most.
Exactly. No more getting bogged down in admin work. You can focus on what actually drives success.
Okay, so speed, risk, focus. What else?
Final thing, scalability. INS Global can handle your growth. No matter how big you want to get in Colombia, they can support you.
They can adapt to your needs?
They can. They're not a small operation. They have the resources and the knowledge to handle big expansion plans. They're a partner who can grow with you.
I like that. So speed, risk, focus, scalability. I think those are 4 really strong reasons to choose INS Global as your global expansion partner.
They are. It's about being efficient, minimizing risk, building a solid foundation for your business in Colombia.
All right, listeners, that brings us to the end of our deep dive into expanding into Colombia with INS Global. We hope this has been helpful. If you're ready to take your business to the next level in Colombia, we strongly suggest reaching out to INS Global today. Talk to them. Tell them about your plans. Let them show you how they can make your expansion a success.
Don't wait. The world is full of opportunities. Don't let the challenges of global expansion hold you back.
Great advice. Thanks for joining us on the deep dive. We'll see you next time.